All right, while you're grabbing some food, while you're grabbing a drink, we're going to get started because we want to dive into an important program with you this evening. I want to first say a huge thank you for everybody. Thank you for coming out and joining us for this important conversation. If I haven't met you, I'm Jonas Peterson. I'm the new CEO at Southwest Michigan First. Look forward to meeting you and spending some time with you. Again, thanks for being here. This is an important discussion this evening, and I want to share just a couple things as we kick off. I've got 2 months in on the job, been spending a lot of time meeting with companies. I'm very optimistic about what we have on the horizon. There is a lot of good news, but there are also some very real challenges. And when you talk to companies, and I've been doing a lot of that for the last couple months, one issue rises to the top. It's workforce, it's talent. It's the ability to provide our companies with the workers they need today and 5 years from now. This is such an important issue that we need to attack it from all possible angles. One of those angles is childcare, right? You may not have thought about it a lot, but it's really important to our labor force participation. We know if you spend $1 of public sector money on childcare, it returns about $7 to the overall economy in terms of ROI and economic impact. It's that important. We get more people to work, we improve our labor force participation rate, which means our companies are more successful, and that's what we care about at Southwest Michigan First. So, again, thanks for joining us. I want to hand the mic over here to Joe to extend more.
Yeah, thank you, Jonas. I'm Joe Sobrowski. I'm president of Battle Creek Unlimited. We're an economic development group here in Battle Creek, Michigan, in Southwest Michigan. I want to thank you all for taking time to come out for this important topic. I'm going to echo everything that Jonas said, but talking to companies on a daily basis, weekly basis, the world has changed. We've always had workforce issues, but I can tell you over the last 2 years, the world has really changed, and childcare, I believe, needs to be raised to the top. And we're here today to hear from some experts and their critical thought on childcare. And I can tell you folks, this is a critical issue to moving this local economy in Battle Creek, and I'm going to even say the regional economy here in Southwest Michigan, including Kalamazoo. Childcare needs to be up there, number one. And I had the privilege last week of touring with a group. We went to CalSec, so thanks Scott and his group. What a wonderful facility. We also went down to Whirlpool, which is also in the region, and toured the Eddy. These are some phenomenal examples, and I know that collectively, Jonas, our group, other groups, and this business community, if we work together, we can do some really creative and awesome things here that we can move the needle in Southwest Michigan. So thank you.
Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks to Joe and Jonas for kicking us off. My name is Kristen Buell-Lepisto. I'm the Executive Director for Kalamazoo County Ready Fours, an organization here that is focused on ensuring that all 3- and 4-year-olds in Kalamazoo County have the opportunity to attend a high-quality preschool experience.
Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Zenda-Wilson. I am co-executive director and founder of Pulse at the Upjohn Institute. I am also a Battle Creek City Commissioner. I'm a recovering funder, having spent a lot of years in philanthropy and realizing that I really wanted to be on the other side of the equation on making social change happen. So I started an organization that is supporting early childhood system building in the Calhoun area. We are now expanding regionally to really help ensure that our families with young children have everything they need to thrive. And that means that they need to have access to quality supports that make their lives more livable, and a big part of that is childcare. So we're really, I'm beyond pleased with not only the turnout tonight and your interest, but also the partnership we have with United Way to make tonight happen. So a special shout out to that team for really getting you folks in the room and really supporting this as well. They understand how important it is. So I'm going to turn it back over to Kristen. We're going to give you a little bit of information. You have some information on your table we're going to go over with you too, so that we can get to the meat of tonight.
So after 2020, it's been really hard to find a leader who has not had their team or their staff affected by childcare. I know that's already been the conversation with many of you tonight, whether it's people leaving the workforce. We know there's historic amount of people leaving the workforce. Many of them are women. It was truly a nightmare. And it really was. It was out of a reoccurring nightmare, I would say. And it made me want to, if you want to just put this up there, but I really did. This was actually a billboard in Texas. And I really identified with this, and I know many of you in the room, or at least folks that are on your teams, felt similarly.
Yeah, thank you. To say that the last 2 years have been challenging would be the understatement of the century. But what an upside that came from this is that it really brought this idea of how critically important childcare is to our economy in sharp focus. There have been so many articles written about it that is coming up in almost every conversation at every table. And it has been for too long an invisible thing that people just assume it's taken care of in some magical way, and it's not. It's been an incredibly vulnerable sector. And so it didn't take much for that to show up as people started experiencing the last 2 years, when, just like Kristen said, who still has 2 young children at home, how challenging it is when you have to do it all and you don't have access to consistent quality care. It's not just that we want to make sure that these children are cared for now. We want to make sure that we're building the workforce you need later. These years early on are critical to that. So this is not just about warehousing children someplace so that they're safe and they're not eating crayons. This is really about building their brains so that we can make sure that they have the ability to thrive in every setting that they have. And so I'm really pleased at this turnout, because we can't do this alone in the nonprofit sector. Our funders can't do this alone. The government can't do this alone. It really is, it's a complicated issue that is going to take all of us to address. And tonight is a really good start for us to begin putting together some of those strategies of what it would look like to partner in that way.
And right after us, you're going to hear from Tim Bardick, who's going to talk more about the economic impact and some numbers behind this issue. But just to give a little bit of context, in order for the average cost of pre-K to fit the government's definition of affordable, a family with 1 child would need to make over $195,000 annually. And we all know that that's just not the reality for most of the families in our communities. To further complicate the challenge, child care centers are experiencing historic wait lists. I was actually out at a center yesterday in Comstock, and they told me they have 106 children on their wait list currently. So this is a very complicated and diverse problem.
And I can say that in the 25 years of me doing work at the ground level in communities, this is the first time that I'm experiencing this level of cross-sector support, coordination, and partnership. And that excites me beyond belief, because that's what it's going to take, right? So when I get a call from Cheryl Johnson at Bronson saying, hey, we want to do something about this, help us out, that's exactly what we want to have happen, right? It's us reaching across our organizations and saying, let's do this together, let's lock arms, figure it out. It won't be easy, but we're going to get there. And so Joe mentioned in his opening that I had the honor of also participating in those site visits last week. We've got a few pictures up here. We had folks from these organizations join us for site visits to CalSec, which was phenomenal. I have to tell you that when I walked into the farmhouse, I felt like I was hugged by that room. It was a place I would want my children, who are now 22 and 27, and would probably really balk at me taking them to childcare. I would want them in there. But we got to learn what it took to actually create this energy around taking care of their employees' children. And they, somebody had mentioned that we're building future scientists here. They get to look out the window and around the campus and see their parents and what they do. And the parents, there was a dad there that came and joined us, and he said, when I can look out my office window and watch my 2 sons playing in the park, like it helps me work better. I'm more productive because I know they're cared for, right? And from there we went down to Benton Harbor and saw a whirlpool site that's run by KinderCare. And very different model, very different setting, but again, Whirlpool saying if we want to attract and retain the best, we have to address the child care issue. This is the investment we're going to make. Now, this is not one size fits all. I think CalSec's approach is very different than Whirlpool's, and whatever your response is going to be completely, customized to whatever it is you feel you need. But we hope you walk out of the room today with a better understanding of what's possible and a better understanding of what role it is that you'll play in that.
Okay, so before we introduce our first speaker, I'd like everybody to take out their phones. I know you have them, and this is the only tech thing we're going to ask you to do this evening. So if you could open up your browser and go to menti.com. There's just 2 poll questions we're going to have you guys ask. So it's menti.com, and then when you get there, you should see a screen that is prompting you for a code. And the code is 33230540. So I'm just going to look for people to look up when they're sort of in the right spot.
And if you're struggling, let us know.
We will come around and help for some light tech support if needed. Light. Is everybody in the right spot? Okay, great. I see some thumbs up. So we'll pull up. It's a live poll. The first question, if you just take a minute to answer, is how well do you feel you understand the scope of the childcare challenges facing your employees? And this is a live poll, so we're just going to get some data here real quick. Good, so we got some very we got a mix of everything. It's kind of a diverse group here.
These are very scientific questions.
Yes. Thank you guys for participating in this. Okay, so this is good for our panelists to note as well, right? So we have a little bit of everything in the room. And we have one more question, which hopefully has some advance. I think Allie has to do it. Maybe we only have one question. No, nothing happened. Nothing again. Oh, the numbers are still changing. Okay, Tim, I guess we're not going to get data on your question. So one question it is. Okay, thank you. It's helpful to know who's in the room. Oh, there we go. Oh, yay. What'd you do? Who knows? Okay. One more poll. So are you aware of the availability of federal and state tax credits that would help subsidize business costs of helping employees with childcare? Tim is going to customize the presentation based on this answer. Okay, well, there's an overwhelming response there.
Yeah, thank you. This is helpful. So when we think about systems, and I look at something like this, what it tells me is that there is a lot of work to be done when it comes to providing access to business leaders around such tax credits. And so taking that, like, who is it that's actually responsible for letting you folks know what that is? How do we partner with Jonas and Joe in a way that helps us understand and get those folks in the room that can help us really kind of access those credits? Because we want to make sure that we're leveraging every possible investment that we can, right? And so you're going to hear a lot about different approaches tonight. We're going to turn it over to Tim. Are you introducing Tim?
Yes.
Okay, just one last thing. I would be remiss if I did not give a shout out to my team who is out and helped you register, to Maria and Angie who are here. So thank you out there. They're sitting out there. Yeah. And then I want to actually walk you through something that is at your table. So along with the Policy Equity Group in DC, you have the CEO Summit, and then there's a paperclip. Behind the paperclip in that pack is a document that looks like this. This is a menu that we built tonight around, right? The idea that there are many different ways for you to show up in this space to support your employees. There are, and we highlighted 2 of those, providing on-site care like CalSec, like Whirlpool, that's one option, right? Another would be to offset the costs. We could talk about that. Some of that isn't with these credits. Offering backup or emergency care, at the minimum providing information, and on the table we have information for you from childcare resources. So at least directing your employees to where they can find childcare or subsidies if they qualify. And then allowing for flexible scheduling, which also helps families align their work with their children's childcare, because that is a big part of the challenge. So we will be not going in depth with all of these, but know that on the back of this document is a way for you to consider where you start in this process. A lot of you said that you don't know much about what the challenges are that your employees are facing. A good place to start is to know. I know that Cheryl Johnson at Bronson has done a pretty extensive survey of their staff to understand the real needs. And she might, I bet, would be happy to talk to anybody who has questions about that. And there are some tools out there that we can point you towards. On this document also is a QR code. If you take a picture of that, it will take you to our Upjohn site where some of the resources will be available to you as well. So please use this as a guide for you as we're talking throughout tonight.
Okay, and it's my pleasure to introduce Tim Bardick. He's a senior economist at the Upjohn Institute for Employment Research, and his research focuses on state and local economic development. Hopefully many of you know him in the community. Dr. Bardick's 2011 book, Investing in Kids, argued that early childhood programs can boost local economies. He's also been instrumental in the founding of Case Ready Fours and is one of my advisors, unfortunately for you, I guess. But we're so happy to have him here tonight. So.
Well, thanks for inviting me. And if you can go to the next slide, I just have 3 points I'm going to try to make. The first is that we have a childcare crisis in this country that's both an immediate one and a long-standing one, and it's caused major problems for the U.S. labor market. The second is we have proven solutions we know how to do that have economic benefits far greater than cost. And the third is that there is a good business case for why the business community and individual businesses should, simply out of enlightened self-interest, be involved with this, both as an individual business and as part of boosting the business climate of an area. So let me get into some of these topics some more. So, first problem, due to the pandemic, childcare employment during most recessions, nothing happens. During this recession, childcare employment plummeted, and it's still at least 10% below where it should be, 10 to 15% below. So there's a huge capacity issue. It's not that there's not demand, there's just not the supply. So there's an issue of capacity in the childcare sector. There's also an issue of reliability. So if you look at data from Michigan, and this is data from February, and this is households who have kids under the age of 5. And what they asked these households is whether or not during the past 4 weeks, did your child care become unavailable for some reason? 1/4 said yes. I see some of the labels in this chart somehow got chopped off, which is too bad. What those are different reasons, different things the employee did because their child care got cut off and was unreliable. And those different charts show people either cutting back their work hours, quitting their job, being fired from their job, deciding not to work. So if you look at the hand on your table, you can actually see the label on that. But essentially, there's a huge labor supply problem due to the lack of reliability of childcare in the current economy. So that's the acute crisis. Then there are long-standing problems with the childcare and preschool sector. Number one is that childcare is very expensive. Full-time, full-year childcare preschool costs about $10,000 a year. A lot of people can't afford that. But at the same time, wages in the child care sector, that's the next slide, are low. For child care, the one chart here on the right, these are for essentially child care workers in Kalamazoo, Battle Creek, nationally. And for comparison, I did animal caretakers. They're all paid about the same, $12 an hour. The other chart shows preschool teachers in Kalamazoo, preschool teachers in Battle Creek, preschool teachers nationally, and animal trainers. All paid $15 an hour. Okay, so given these low wages, 12, 15 bucks an hour, this sector has great difficulty attracting and keeping high-quality teachers and care workers. Why the combination of high cost yet low wages? Because in order to have even minimally adequate quality in the childcare sector, you have to have low class sizes. It's a very labor-intensive sector. It's inherently expensive, so we have this problem. Now, this has caused significant problems for labor force participation in the U.S., particularly for women. So this chart shows labor force participation rates in various countries over time of women. The U.S. showed a huge increase in labor force participation for women from the 1940s until the 1990s. After the 1990s, it stalled and actually went down a little bit for women. Other countries have done much better, have been continuing to improve. To take one example, Norway has far higher labor force participation rates for women. Well, why? Well, one reason is, at age 1 in Norway, the government subsidizes childcare for everyone. It's higher for low-income Norwegians, but it's subsidized for everyone. Age 1 on, universal childcare preschool. That's just part of what they provide there. So this is a major competitiveness problem for the U.S. We simply don't have high enough labor force participation rates. So on to the next point. There are solutions to this problem. I'm going to give 2 examples of solutions, but I could give more. So, Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C., starting in 2007, began implementing universal free preschool for all 3 and 4-year-olds. What happened? This chart shows labor force participation rates for all women with children under the age of 5. As a result of doing this, labor force participation for this group went up about 10 percentage points, either compared to the past or compared to similar cities. Now, note that this is for a program that is only a school year program and only for 3 and 4-year-olds. And yet it had this dramatic effect on the labor market. You can imagine that the effects would be far greater if you included 1 and 2-year-olds, or if you made the program full-time, full year, which this program was not and is not. Okay, that's example 1. Example 2. Again, these things got chopped off, but you deal with technical glitches all the time. So, the adversarian program is probably the best known randomized controlled trial of childcare and preschool that's ever been done. So it was an experiment that was started in 1972 in the state of North Carolina. So it's an experiment. We flip a coin. Heads, your kid gets to go to free childcare and preschool from 6 weeks of age to age 5. Tails, whoops, you're in the control group. You get to answer annoying survey questions. What were the results of that? Well, the total cost of the program is $63,000, $12,000 a year, 5 years. Okay? Then there are benefits for parents and increased earnings, $55,000. Benefits for the former child participants, increased earnings, $153,000, and benefits for the government in higher taxes and lower welfare benefits. Total benefits, you total those up, over $250,000, over 4 times cost. And this is not even counting the benefits for business, which I'll come back to. This is just looking at what happened to the kids, what happened to the parents, what happened to the government. It's not even including the business sector's benefits. Okay, I want to go into 2 things about why these benefits are so high. First, for parents. I think the thing to recognize in the case of childcare and preschool, it doesn't just have short-term benefits, it has long-term benefits. So in the case of the adversarian program, most of the benefits and increased earnings of parents are not due to them working more when their kids were in the program, which is surprising. most of them are due to increased earnings after their kids were out of the program. Why did their earnings go up afterwards? One, during the program, many parents took the opportunity to go to higher education, and the treatment group of moms was much more likely to get a degree of some sort from higher education. That increases your earnings. Secondly, being able to work more in the short run and acquire labor market experience increases your earnings in the long term. And so we find even 10 years after the program is over, when the kids are 15, that the employment of moms in the treatment group was far higher than that in the control group. Second, I want to talk about the benefits for kids. Okay. One of the interesting things about benefits of child care and preschool for kids is that the earnings benefits you see in adulthood are far higher than you predict based simply on test scores. So these programs generally raise test scores at kindergarten entrance, and you can use that to predict impact on later earnings. So for Abecedarian, you would have predicted maybe 13% increase in earnings. Almost every program of test score effects tend to fade, maybe not totally, by third grade. So by third grade, it had gone down quite a bit in the Abecedarian program and these other programs like Head Start, Perry Preschool, the CPC is Chicago Child Parent Center program. But then all of a sudden, in adulthood, the earnings effects for Abecedarian are over 27% increase in earnings. What on earth is going on here? Well, what it shows is that there's more to success in life than test scores. The usual explanation, the most plausible one, is it's due to so-called soft skills. What on earth are soft skills? Well, they're things like how you relate to your peers, how you relate to your teacher. And the notion is that a kid who in preschool or in childcare has learned how to relate well to peers and to an authority figure, therefore does better in kindergarten, relates better to the teacher, relates better to peers, goes on, blah, blah, blah. And these soft skills go into adulthood. And obviously any employer knows that soft skills are at least as important as math and literacy skills. How well you get along with your coworkers, how well you get along with customers, how well you get along with your supervisor. I mean, if you can't do those things, you could have the best math skills in the world, you're not going to be a good employee. So there's really something going on here that's beyond test scores. Okay, next slide. Now, I already mentioned that when you look at the benefits of preschool in the Abecedarian, they didn't count benefits for business. So what are the benefits for an individual business? Forget about the benefits for society. Let's look at the benefits for the individual business, for the bottom line of business, the profitability of business. I think there are 4 types at least you can think of. High quality child care and preschool reduces employee turnover by quite a bit. And there are various studies of how much employee turnover costs. It varies from business to business, person to person. But most of the estimates, they cluster around about 20% of annual compensation is what it costs that you have a vacancy, you have to fill the vacancy, you have to train the worker, they're not fully productive right away. 20% of an annual salary is the cost of employee turnover. There's also a reduction due to child care of the cost of absenteeism, which is large. It was already mentioned that worker productivity is affected by this. People like to know their kid's doing okay. You're going to be more productive if you know your kid's doing okay. And finally, this is a fringe benefit potentially that a business can provide that can allow you to hire more productive employees without necessarily increasing regular wages. So it can be a fringe benefit that pays off. Okay, just to sum up. So we have a problem. We have inadequate child care and preschool capacity in the U.S. We simply don't have enough of it at a high enough quality level that's available reliably for people. And it's causing a major competitiveness problem for the U.S. and major problems for U.S. business. We know the solutions: greater support by some combination of government, society in general, and business of this. And for individual businesses that I mentioned, I think there's a case for enlightened self-interest that this can increase your profits. It was already mentioned, there are various programs. There's a federal tax credit for employer-provided child care. There's a Michigan has a program called Tryshare, under which the state government, the family, and business split the cost 3 ways. I'm not going to go into details of those programs. If you're interested, I think Casey Ready For's and Pulse staff can tell you more about what these programs are, how they work, how you apply, et cetera. Beyond that, as was already mentioned, this is important. You know, people talk about the business climate. What is the business climate? So usually people talk about business regulation, business taxes. I'm not saying those things are unimportant. They certainly are important. And you know, Michigan needs to pay attention to those. But a lot of the business climate has to do with the quality of the local inputs to business. And it's certainly arguable that there is no more important input to business than labor. It was already mentioned how the importance of labor. And childcare and preschool is not the only thing that we need to do to address the labor supply, labor quality challenge. There's the whole K-12 system. There's the whole higher education system. There's the whole job training system. Those systems are very complicated. They're something that we need to support and improve and increase support for. But what I will say about childcare and preschool, it is one good thing that we know how to do. It's really pretty straightforward. We know exactly what to do here. You make high-quality childcare and preschool more affordable and higher quality, and you're going to get lots of results for the parents, for the kids, and for the larger society, including the business community. We know this is we know how to do. It's really a question of political willpower, what it amounts to. We know what to do. It's simply a matter of putting the needed changes into law and getting the support. And for that, I think there's not going to be any one sector. As was already mentioned, you can't just have, okay, my wife's a social worker. You can't just be having the social workers of the world advocating for this. Social workers are great. They do wonderful work, but we can't just have the educators of the world working on this. We have to have every segment of our society thinking about this should be a key item. When the business community goes to Lansing or to Washington, they should be saying, what on earth are you doing about this crisis? What are you doing about it? When are you willing to step up to the plate and deal with this? So anyway, I hope this information is helpful, and I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Tim. I have to share that I was on a call with some early childhood folks from across the state about a month ago, and it was virtual because our worlds are virtual right now, right? And in the chat, somebody said, I have to tell you, my life changed. I'm reading this book everybody needs to get a hold of. It's by this guy named Tim Barden. He's our very own celebrity here. So you guys are really lucky that we had him. And he's getting shout outs all over the place. Thank you, Tim. I do think that this idea of building public and political will around what we need to do around childcare is exactly why we're here. I think that, Ben Damerow, who I work with closely at Upjohn Institute, said that it is on the lips of everyone at all the tables that he's sitting at right now, so I'm really grateful for that. Now, I had the honor as a city commissioner of getting a call one day from a young journalist named Amira Austin, who was doing a story on her own about some work we were doing trying to provide permanent supportive housing in Battle Creek. And she and I immediately clicked. There was a lot of chemistry there. She ended up moderating a panel for me a couple months later, and whenever we do an event, she is the first person on my list that I want to call. Amira Austin is a Battle Creek native who is now a WWMT journalist. She is here. I am going to have her come up. This screen should be coming up anytime now, and we're going to ask our panelists to get on stage. Amira is going to, thank you, give us a minute here. Amira is going to moderate the conversation with the 4 people that will be able to tell you from their perspective what they are doing about this child care crisis, and then we're going to open it up for some question and answer so that you can ask questions of them, and Chris and I will be able to manage that. So Amira.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here with you all, and thank you all for coming and spending your Wednesday evening with us. I'm going to invite the panelists to come on up. And I actually recently did a story on the lack of childcare here in West Michigan, and I found that 44% of Michigan families live in a childcare desert where there are not enough options. So I'm very glad to be here and a part of this larger conversation and have these change leaders up here to tell us how they're contributing to solving this issue. So first, I want to kick it off and let the panelists introduce themselves. So we'll start with Sean over here.
Good afternoon, everyone. And first of all, I want to congratulate everyone for taking the time to pay attention to this issue, because it is a really critical issue. I'm Sean Welsh. I'm the regional president for PNC, run the outstate markets for the bank. And we've been investing in early childhood for about 15 years. We've got a $500 million commitment that we've made to try to change that, and we'll talk later on why we think that's such a good investment, but I'm really thrilled to be here.
All right, Kim.
Good evening, everyone. I am Kim Carter, Superintendent of Battle Creek Public Schools, and today I get to talk about this from the vantage point of an employer rather than the K-12 public education sector. So.
Thank you, Kim. Cheryl?
Hi, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Cheryl Johnson, and I'm privileged to contribute to Bronson Healthcare. We are one of the larger employers in southwestern Michigan, about 8,500 staff and positions, and I'm excited to be here and imagine the possibilities as employers of what we might do as a collective organization.
Thank you, Cheryl. Scott?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Scott Nikesa, and I am the CEO at CalSec. I'm so happy to be here, and first I want to say thank you for the host that invited me, and I have three things I want to do. One is I want to inspire you and motivate you to think about the things that we've done at CalSec and how beneficial it's been. Number two, I want to write a paper with Tim on benefits of this. And then third, I'd like to collect any extra tickets, revenue.
Thank you, Scott. All right, we'll dive right in for the sake of time. Sean, I want to start with you. So for some people in this room, you may be an unlikely partner when it comes to childcare. So can you talk about why PNC, a global bank, has this focus on early childhood?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Our employees made us do it. No, but in joking aside, we looked at our philanthropy. We have a separate foundation. It's a 501c3, and we decided we couldn't be all things to all people. So being bankers, we stepped back and we hired an outside economic analytic firm, should have hired Tim, to tell us where's the biggest return we can get for our investment, because we're financial people. And the answer came back very compelling, that if you want to make a difference with your philanthropic dollars, change the starting point for every child in your community, and that payback is going to be immense. And we've heard 7 to 1. I think it's probably even higher than that.
And so, as someone who is very connected to community business leaders, what do you wish corporate leaders understood more about the challenges of finding affordable and quality childcare?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question, because I've been in different conversations, whether it be legislators, business leaders, friends, and different people around this issue, and you get a lot of different comments, and I think they're all based on their perspective. Early childhood is an incredibly complex highway that parents have to navigate every day. And some of the comments that I've heard from people is they say, well, it's a family issue. You know, we can't fix a family issue. I kind of turn that around. And I'll give you a good example. There was a social bond issue in a school district out in Utah called Granite City School District. And what a social bond does is it invests to make a difference now to save money later. So for those of us that say it's a family issue, they're approaching it with probably limited knowledge, which is okay. We need to respect people on that. But when you look to see what that school system saved in taxpayer dollars and the outcomes and the positive outcomes, and Tim was referring to this, it's an economic, just overwhelmingly compelling case. So what I say to all business leaders or legislators, whoever I'm talking to, is ask questions, learn this issue. It is really, really complex. I have one friend on the Detroit side who's the CEO of a large international construction company, and he had a mindset similar to this, and I won't give you the name. He actually went to a family and started the day with a kid, started the breakfast with the family, and watched what the challenges that this family and this child had to go through It wasn't what his kids were going through. And it really comes down to, and this may sound a little corny and a little hokey, but every kid starts at the same day at the same point. And if we want to be the best country, best economy we want to be, we got to make sure these kids reach their full potential.
Thank you so much, Sean. And so such a complex issue like childcare is going to need a unique solution. And so I want to kick it over to Kim to talk about the Tryshare model, which marries investments from families, the state, and employers. And so, Kim, can you talk a little bit about what motivated you to participate in the Tryshare model?
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to share. So for us, it's really understanding that we are facing an educator crisis and shortage right now, and really thinking innovatively about how we can continue to support our employees and invest in them. And so it's not always about the base compensation, although that is critically important to many, but there are other ways to innovate and provide them with investments in their families and in just in that workforce. And so one of the things that we decided was to try the Tryshare pilot model, the Tryshare allows us to pay a portion of the childcare costs alongside the state will pay a portion, and so will the employee. And this is just another benefit for recruitment and retainment in our organization, and helping some of our employees who are not paid at the level that we would love to have them. This is a different way to invest in them. I'm coupling that with lots of other opportunities to really think about creatively, how do you source great talent and invest in them in different ways.
Definitely, it's such a great incentive. And so, into buying into this model, what benefits do you anticipate this will have for your staff and your organization as a whole?
So for us, it creates a little bit more competitiveness as we are really trying to recruit and retain high quality teachers, but it also allows them to have a source of comfort around making sure that they can have high quality childcare. It increases access and it increases affordability, and now they can think more about what they're going to do in their careers more so than how are they paying for childcare.
Yeah, thank you, Kim. I also want to throw another stat out there. When I was working on my story, the Center for American Progress said that over 100,000 Michigan parents had to make career sacrifices last year due to childcare. So I want to pass it over to Scott. So you run a global company focused on food and beverage, flavors, herbs, and spices. So how did CalSAC come up with the idea and decide to provide an on-campus early learning childcare center for employees' children?
That's a good question, and I'll tell you, it's not like the internet who invented it, but I can tell you that we started out with the idea with who we are and who we want to be and what kind of company we want to be. So we thought a lot about that, and we have a family-owned company, so we're a large family-owned company, and we started thinking about the benefits that we give to our stakeholders, not just shareholders. So what are we doing for our employees, what are we doing in the communities where we work, and then what are we doing for the planet? That really evolved into us becoming a B corporation, which is a benefit corporation that looks at all three of those things and asks the board of directors to think about how the company is doing in those areas. And then we had an inspiration from the third generation of the Todd family, Martha Todd, who said, as a single mom with 2 kids, what are we doing to help women in the workplace? And that inspired a lot of us, and myself included, to really think about how that would benefit the company. And because the other important thing about what we do is the profits we make and how we use them and where we put them, we really started thinking about what's the benefit of doing that. Is it affordable, and can we really afford to do that? Is it scalable? So we really got going on that. And then we really stepped back and we thought, if we're really worried about the profits, then what is the biggest thing we can do here? And it had to be around labor. So labor is 40 to 60% of the cost of most companies. So that's where the biggest amount of your dollars go. And what are you doing for the labor that you have? So are you enriching it? Are you developing it? Are you attracting the best talent? Do you keep them? So if you have this big labor pool with women and men, and you have women that lose 30% of their jobs because they have children between 0 and 6, then you're losing all of that labor force because they can't find affordable daycare. So we started thinking about a lot about that and how are we going to take care of that. And then we started thinking about the quality of life for our employees. And our employees that, where a woman is taking her child here and then coming back to work and then going over there and then coming back and then going home. And we thought about they have to stay home today because their child care center was closed and that, and we started thinking about the biggest impact that has. And so we really then started modeling what this means for attracting talent, what it means for retaining talent, and what it means for the quality of life for our employees. So I started in the company in 1999, and I thought we were going to be a Y2K company, and everybody we were hiring was working in IT. Now I think we're going to be a childcare company because we're going to have 60 kids on our campus in another year because this is such a great need and it's such a competitive advantage. So then we thought about the profits, about how we retain people, how we recruit people, and that. In the Child Development Center we speak 7 different languages. So we bring the talent, the best talent we can find, all in the world, and we bring them to that Child Development Center. And they don't learn about arithmetic and spelling. They learn about problem solving, respect for nature. They learn how to get along. It is an amazing experience. I'm so happy that we've been able to share that with a lot of people. If you don't have one of these, we're going to be coming after your people, and we're going to recruit them. And you're not going to have a chance to retain them.
Uh-oh, watch out.
This is a big thing. So that's what it does for women. It improves the quality of their life. And I'll say this about men that are working in the company. So I'm from a different era. If my mom asked my dad, hey, can you pick the kids up after school? He would probably say, yeah, I think so. And then he'd say, where do they go to school? What's the name of their teacher? Now we have dads that are going up and reading to kids on campus. We have dads that sit at their office and their kid comes by and waves to him through the window and they say hi to him. They have kids that are learning, getting along. We don't teach them things, we teach them to be problem solvers, to get along with kids in that. It has been so amazing. So we ask ourselves every day, is the world a better place because CalSec is in it? And we try to say yes to that, and we do say yes to that because we have a child development center.
Thank you so much, Scott. And so you touched on it a little bit, but talk about the changes you've seen in recruitment, in retaining those employees since you've implemented the child care.
Well, I know some of you that came out to visit our Child Development Center last week, you could see some of the things we're doing. We're gathering up maple syrup, teaching kids about nature and that. But the other thing is, I heard one of the parents that was on the committee for the Child Development Center, and it was so inspiring. And I could tell you what it means for the 20% we save, and this is how we retain people. We had a 2.5% loss of employees before COVID, and we're at 4% now. So that's people that have decided to go somewhere else. That's a pretty low number. When we get to 4%, we really get nervous. We start worrying about it. But to have this father talk about, I go up and I get to read to my class during the day. My kid comes by and he knocks on the window and he says, hi, Dad. And then he goes off in his boots and he goes to the arboretum, or he goes walking around the pond and that. That kind of stickiness, that kind of value, that kind of engagement with the company, that's an employee that wants to learn and develop and stay with the company. That has been just so amazing. And then I get a letter about once a month, and I tell this story about a recruitment letter I get. Hi, Scott, my name is Sandra. I'm an aeronautical engineer. I don't know if you need that in the flavor business, but I've read about your company. I am so impressed. And to have a child development center on campus to improve the quality of my life and to be able to do the things I want to do for my family. If you ever think you need that, please let me know and write to me. So I wrote her back. We have a guy that worked from Los Alamos on the atomic energy thing. I'm not sure what he does, but if we do get an aeronautical engineer, you're the first person I'm going to write. So people don't leave when they have that, and people are most concerned about their kids. They're most concerned about the uncertainty of raising kids in an environment where they don't know where they're going to be, where it's closed down, where I have to leave my job. And then kids, people that don't have kids anymore, they like to know that this person is going to be there tomorrow because they have something for their family to take care of, so they don't have to leave and they don't have to stay home. I've seriously considered having more kids. My wife said, no, that's not going to happen. But I'm going to tell you that it is a competitive advantage. And I just want to add this one more point. If you want to do this and you want to do it right, I'm more than interested in having a workshop. I'm hoping Casey Ready For Us will help us undertake that and tell you about, here's the curriculum you choose, here's the insurance, here's what you need to think about, here's all the things you need to do. I'd like to do that for everyone. I'd like to inspire you to take care of your people the way we feel like we can. So I want to do that for everybody here, and I want to say that it's been so amazing for the company and that, and I am so proud to work for CalSec and the family that owns the company.
Thank you, Scott. I'll get your card after, so when I have kids, I'll come work for you. Yeah.
Are you an aeronautical engineer?
No, I'm not that advanced. I want to jump over to Cheryl because we talked a little bit earlier about the things you're doing at Bronson as well to help address this issue. So you're collecting data from your staff, and you've also helped, you partner with the YWCA to help provide emergency backup care. And so talk about during the pandemic, what motivated you to make such bold moves to help your staff?
So we have, just to give you a little bit of context, about 40% of our workforce are millennials and Zs. And so we do have people who are also grandparents raising children as well, and I want to do a shout out to them. So as you can imagine, during the pandemic, we had all kinds of things going on in the healthcare system. And so there were a lot of opportunities to work overtime and various shifts. And so what we really needed to do, and we're just touching the surface of this, is to provide urgent care. And so we have partnered with the YWCA. They have a beautiful facility on Portage Road, the Dreamery. And that allows for people that need urgent care to be able to have their children in a safe space. And again, I so admire what CalSec has done. I have the privilege of visiting you. And so this is just the start. While we don't believe that our mission necessarily is child care, we would love to partner with other employers to create a child development center. And I think you really shift our paradigm to look at it as child development because we do know that that is a need. We've done a lot of assessments with our employees to understand their needs. And it is an issue, as you can imagine, with healthcare of turnover. We know that to replace a nurse, it is a minimum of $45,000. So it is to our competitive advantage to figure out how people can stick and stay. We also know that at Bronson, our highest turnover is within the first 2 years. And so when you start really looking at issues of retention and attrition, it really is to our competitive advantage to create programs into something that Superintendent Carter said, looking at a total reward system where we can support our staff and physicians to really feel a sense of belonging, and that we know that child care is one of those things that we really earnestly have to look out for. So I would love to collaborate with other employers. We are so engaged in trying to figure this out, and we think that it would really impact our bottom line. But we found a tremendous program with the YWCA. They are masterful in education, and we look forward to building out this program.
That's awesome. Thank you, Cheryl. And so like you said, you went to CalSec, you were able to visit Whirlpool as well. So just taking away what you're learning from that, what do you see as Bronson's next move when it comes to addressing this issue?
So our next move is here, as you know, in Van Buren, Calhoun, and Kalamazoo. Our next move is to look at, and there's a real need for full-time care. And so we would love to work with other organizations to figure out how we build that out. And I think that the synergy, and really if you could just imagine Southwestern Michigan being this talent pipeline, and that we do these innovative and creative things where we're their employer of choice. And so I think that if we began to really think about ourselves and reimagine that opportunity for work-life integration and working with other employers, we could really market this region as an employer of choice. And I know that everyone is having labor shortages. We have 1,000 openings, so
Wow.
That's just an indication of where we are, and I know that you probably have life challenges. So if you know of any nurses, send them my way tonight.
Any nurses out there? Thank you, Cheryl. So right now I want to open it up to you all. If you have any questions for the panelists, first let's just give them a round of applause. Thank you for sharing the solutions that you're coming up with in your own realms. Does anyone from the audience have a question for any of the panelists?
Okay, you asked. The question I have is, those of you that have 24-hour, 7-day-a-week employees, how are you going to provide for the workers that work 7A to 7P, whose daycares close at 6 o'clock, and those who work 7P to 7A, who don't have any daycare abilities available to them?
We have 24-hour employees. I mean, in our operations center on 9th Street, we've got about 2,000 employees, and it operates 24 hours. There's a couple ways. I mean, we talk all about quality childcare, and that's a piece of the puzzle. Now, what I think we're really trying to do is get to full employment participation, and I love it that economists are finally starting to talk about that number. We talked for too long about the unemployment number. It's the employment participation number I think we need to focus on. So there's a number of things I think employers can do. One, as we referenced it, emergency childcare. We have this at PNC. If you wake up in the morning and your childcare option is not there anymore, they call a number and we'll arrange to help them out. And so that's a 24-hour. The other piece that I think and I'm always optimistic, I'm thinking that COVID will get us there. We need to be more flexible. When we talk about female participation in the workforce, I'm fortunate, which is why I'm so patient. I have 3 daughters, and they tend to be the smartest in the room. And historically, I'm a baby boomer. We didn't have a great way to keep those smartest people in the room in the workforce. And we as employers need to get more flexible. We need to find ways to be more adaptable to keep that talent in the workforce. And talent, if I were to ask Jonas, who runs economic development, and I've asked him this question, companies aren't choosing where to locate their company based on, well, I can tell them the number one thing they're looking at is who's got the talent. We've got it, and we as employers have to find a way to make them be able to participate more easily. We have to be more creative. So, and I know Bronson probably deals with the same thing.
I'll just add to that because that's something we've been thinking about a lot. And so as we've done some networking, what we're told, and I don't know this to be true, but what we're told is that you could develop a schedule from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. It gets some of the shifts, not all. But what we're also told is that oftentimes parents want their children to be in a home environment at night. And so that's where maybe Subsidize can come up with in-home care programs, but we need to do a little bit more research on that. I hear that there have been child development centers that try to do 24/7 and often aren't successful.
I would add exactly that. So we've taken surveys, and so we're open from 6:30 to 7 at night, so you can come early and you can leave late. But we find most parents don't want their kids in our child development center at night. They really want them at home in their own bed and that, so they don't want them up at that hour of the day, and so we don't have the same need or the same desire for kids to be there at night. And I wanted to add this one other thing. I'm pretty sure that everyone is going to leave here and they're going to start their own child development center because they're going to learn just how important it is. But then I'm going to tell you this. Everybody that works in our child development center gets at least $15 an hour or more. They get 401ks, they get health benefits, they get eye care, they get dental. So I won't be taking your employees anymore, but I'll be taking your child development care workers if you don't pay a minimum wage, a living wage, and provide benefits.
Hi, thanks for sharing everything today. We have looked at doing this for years and have surveyed our employees over the years, and I think we're a small organization, so what recommendations would you have when you first started out to really figure out what the sustainability would be to do a program like this when you are a small company?
If I was going to answer that, I'll tell you that if we look at the total payroll we have and we think about if we took 1% or 2% of that and we put it into this, and we could do that for 60 families, and we subsidize it, so we don't pay for the entire amount, but those workers that are working at this level in their compensation get paid a lot more in terms of the tuition that they get from the company. If you're at this level, you get a lot, and if you're at a high level, then you pay almost the full amount. So we do have a sliding scale. We do ask employees to participate, and we also think that it's a benefit. So we take the same amount of dollars that we put in our Child Development Center, and we take the same amount and we put it in developing people in the company. So if you want to go back and get a BS in that, so we just look at it as a cost of our benefits and how we use our profits, which we talked about in terms of retention and development of people.
I might add one more thing on that too, and I think it was over a year ago I was at CalSec's facility. I didn't see Scott that day, but it's amazing. I want to work there. So that, compliment to the company, but it's hard. I mean, for companies like CalSec, for companies like PNC, we have scale to do this stuff. It's harder for smaller companies. I said in the beginning, early childhood is probably one of the most complex regulatory pathways that you can try to understand. And one of the things that a number of us have been advocating for is trying to simplify that. For employers to come together, smaller employers, and build a co-op of some sort, the regulations change. For one employer to have their employees, they have a different set of regulations, which is right. That's the way it should be. But there's no reason why they should get more expensive as we come together. So I think we can make change to make it easier for these to happen, but take the time to learn and understand some of the obstacles. There's a lot of them out there. The pay scale, there's just the regular regulations, certification, the speed that it takes to certify teachers. That's gotten a little bit better, but learn it. It's a really complex space, and it's hurting us all.
Scott, you finished with a statement I want to just clarify. It sounds like you're talking about an a la carte benefit package based on what the employee needs at that time of their career. Is that right?
It's available to everyone. It's not unlimited. So, if you want to go to school and you want to finish your BS, if you want to get a PhD in this area, then you have to be, performing well. You have to have pretty good marks in your job and all of that. So it's not a la carte, but it's offered to everybody. And if you work towards it, a lot of people can obtain it. If you have children, you get on a list. We have 60 openings. So right now we have 45 that are signed up. And so when we open our next one with certification of the facility and that, we'll have more openings. So we try to make it available to everybody, and we try to be cognizant of employees from all sectors in that.
It's something I've been thinking about, this a la carte method, because a 20-year-old with a young kid is going to have different priorities than somebody who's 50, right? And so if you can move those dollars, those benefit dollars around to different areas and make them available at different stages of the career, and still keep it equitable as far as the amount of benefits you're providing. Of course, taking the type of position into account as well in that scale.
So I do think that's a great comment. And so if you could do that effectively without people feeling that you're taking money here from someone else.
Right.
So the first thing is that everybody benefits when the company does really well. So all of the things that the company does to retain people, to attract talent, and all that has, an overall effect on how profitable the company is, which bonuses are based on that. So that's number one. So when people show up, when people don't have to be off, and all of that. And then I think that the performance of an individual can also entitle them to do greater things and to work a little harder and to do all of that. So that's another part of it, the incentive to try to obtain that. But when you start segmenting things, and I mean, and we've got 45% of our people have been there less than 5 years, and then we got 55% like me that have been there more than 100 years. So it's really hard to kind of divide things up in that. So you just have to try to be as equitable as you can and look at that. And I don't want to be political here, but we got millennials, we got baby boomers, we got everybody in between, and so everybody has a different idea. So we try to be as I guess practical for everyone we have there and try to find something for everybody. I mean, I can tell you we probably have more teams, than the NCAA has, because we have a hockey team, a ski team, a bowling team, and softball. So we try to find something for everybody, and it all sort of works that way.
Any other questions? Well, I want to thank the panel, and Amira, thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to
Thank you all. I'll be brief because, we're about to have more food and drink. So I'm going to wrap up tonight. My name is Chris Sargent. I'm the CEO for United Way. And I just want to thank you all for coming out. It's great to see people in person. You all look very different beyond the chin up on a Zoom call. So that's kind of cool to get back together in person. I really want to lift up all of the partners that made this happen tonight. Really thank you, Jonas and Joe, as economic development partners, to your teams for coming out and making this a central focus for, keeping people in workforce and really growing the sector. Thank you, Tim, and the Upjohn Institute for continuing to shed expertise and light and really making it simple. Like, this isn't that big of a deal. We can make this happen. We're doing this well already. The panelists were great. You added context and really important, so thank you for that. So Kim and Cheryl and Sean and Scott, and who knew Scott was so funny? He's always got good one-liners, so we appreciate that. Amira, thank you for moderating tonight. And to the KC Ready 4s and the Pulse team, thank you for doing the systems level work. We sometimes forget this isn't just about a center. This is about high quality childcare that is affordable, and these organizations do this every day of the year and make this happen. So I really want to lift up and appreciate that. That's really what United Way is about. It's about bringing all of us together around complex social issues and making them something that we can make a difference on. Bringing businesses together, economic development, local systems level partners, individual organizations. We have El Concilio, the YMCA here tonight. We heard about the YWCA and the nonprofit partners that really advance this opportunity for children to have quality childcare and for parents to have resources. If you look in your packet, there's a tremendous amount of opportunities for how you get started. So if you're like, I don't know what this looks like, and I might not be ready to create a childcare center tomorrow with Scott, although he'll tell me how to do it. But what can I do to get started right now? And the simple answer is you just have to invest. Invest some time. There's strategies on the table in the resources that we have. There's an ALICE report that talks about the impact that our families and the decisions that they're having to make every day. I love the fact that you talked all about some level of sustainable wages and benefits. That's really where it starts too. And we've got to recognize that that's critically important so that we can fund a healthy early childhood sector that make it work, that the business model can work. Because it struggles when we pay our employees too little and ask to subsidize too much. So I'd like you to leave tonight with a couple of thoughts. One is, what can you do to invest and advocate inside your organization? So we all need this at some level. We probably need it even at an additional level. So what can we do to work with our leadership to really think about that and think about it from an employee-centered perspective? I know we think about the bottom line, and that's important too. But what do our employees need, and what are we hearing from them, and how are we turning that into strategies that are successful? Employee-centered. And then think about it from a community perspective. Because it's going to take each of us stepping up in a community. We have elected officials tonight. Thank you all for joining us. It's a local issue, it's a county issue, it's a state issue. And that's really where we can gain the most traction. Working together and not saying, I hope somebody else has this figured out because I need employees to fill my jobs tomorrow. Nope, that's us. Let's go figure it out. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate being in person. Have a great night and continue the food and drink. We'll be here for a little longer. Take care.